What's going on, sartorialists? Welcome back to The Wholesey Style. If you're new here, my name is Barry Ramirez. Welcome to the channel and thank you sincerely for watching. Today, I'm going to do something that I haven't done on this channel before. I'm going to explore the recent style transformation of a public figure. I'm talking about Jordan Peterson. I'm going to start the video by trying as best as possible to defend his intentionality with his dress, and then I'm going to move on to critique his style, which probably shouldn't be too difficult to do given how really bad it's gotten lately. But without saying too much more, let's crack into it. To put it simply, Jordan Peterson's style has recently changed. While Jordan Peterson has always dressed, as far as I can tell, at least as long as he's been in the public eye, he's always dressed in a classic manner. He has very lately become more intentional about the way that he dresses. I was actually watching a podcast that he did with I always get this wrong, PBD, and he was explaining that before he launched his tour in 2018, the 12 Rules for Life tour, he decided that he was going to improve his wardrobe. And although initially it seemed like he had a good sense of what he was doing with his style, it has increasingly, as of late, become more and more, I would say, bizarre. His most recent update to his wardrobe is that he had 12 suits commissioned from a fashion house called LFGF, and the salutation on their website says, "Dress like a rock star." So, yeah. But I want to hone in on two of his recent suit commissions and use them as examples for what is good and what I think is bad about Jordan Peterson's recent style transformation. I want to focus in on his so-called Heaven and Hell suit and his Twitter suit. Let's first look at his Heaven and Hell suit. This is a two-tone suit. It is half navy, half magenta. It is also composed of half sheep's wool and half goat's wool. Interestingly, when you open the jacket, on the lining on the inside, one half has flames and the other half has clouds. Now, of course, this is supposed to represent the dichotomy of the universe, I suppose. So you have the navy and magenta, which is representative of heaven and hell. You have the clouds and the flames, which are representative, respectively, of heaven and hell. And even if you think about the fabric that it's composed of, half sheep's, half goat's wool, that even has symbolic significance as well, right? Sheep as being those who are followers of God, and goats being more of a demonic animal. So I will first mount a defense. So in Jordan Peterson's defense, what I appreciate about his stylistic choice with this suit is, first of all, just the general seriousness he takes towards dress. As somebody who is a public figure, as somebody who publicly speaks, spends a lot of time in front of an audience, I think it's very important that you be meticulous about what it is that you wear, and also be cognizant of what your clothes communicate about you. Now, I'll say in particular with the suit, I also appreciate that he is trying to make his clothes meaningful. In this case, he's making them symbolic. Of course, we have the heaven and hell dichotomy throughout the suit, even down to the level of fabric. Here again, I just appreciate that level of meticulousness. Now, on the other hand, the problem with this particular suit is that I think it looks to a degree childish, and it's a bit too colorful for somebody who we are supposed to treat as a public intellectual, who we are supposed to take very, very seriously. I think if we're just looking at the color combination, I think that Jordan Peterson is not aware that he's communicating a certain degree of childishness by having a suit that is cut up in this particular way, by which I mean cut up into navy and magenta. Also, I would say further, and this is kind of a deeper, more philosophical critique, which is that you have to be aware that clothing has a history, and you can only to a certain degree go against the grain of the history of the clothing, right? So what Jordan Peterson is trying to do is he's trying to will, in a certain sense, meaning into clothing that isn't necessarily there, which I can, once again, in part appreciate. but which I don't think that he's being too cognizant of, right? So when we look at his suit and we see that it's two-toned, the only people who really wear suits like that are people who are clownish, right? It detracts from the certain degree of seriousness that he would otherwise warrant. And I think that that's in part why it was a bad stylistic choice on his part, largely because of that color combination there. It makes him look very clownish, in my opinion. So now I want to discuss Jordan Peterson's Twitter suit, as it is called. So the Twitter suit is a two-toned pale blue, cream, velvet, and corduroy suit. He has worn it in the past with a cream and pale blue vest with a tie, which has Elon Musk's face on it. And then he usually wears it also with sneakers that have the Twitter bird logo on them. Now, here again, I'm going to try to mount a defense of Jordan Peterson's choice of clothing here. So in his defense, I would argue that I appreciate the meticulousness of his clothing, and I also appreciate his desire to will, so to speak, his clothing to have meaning, right? Jordan Peterson very often talks about free speech, the importance of free speech. He's somebody who has found himself in plenty of scandals on Twitter, and I think at one point he was actually banned from Twitter, although fact check me on that. But I think what he's talking about is very, very important, and I appreciate that he's trying through his clothing to express the importance of free speech. However, now I will criticize the outfit. I don't think that he is conscious of the broader significations of the clothing. Take just as an example the color combination that he's using. It's pale blue and cream. Now, those two colors taken together, I don't think there's nothing inherently wrong about those two colors. They don't clash or anything like that. However, the outfit comes off as very, very bright, very garish, I would say. And as a consequence of that, most people would look at it and think, oh, this looks clownish, right? It's very important for a public speaker, somebody who's a public intellectual, to be conscious of how their clothing communicates meaning. And in this case, again, he's coming off as a bit clownish if we just analyze the outfit on the basis of the color combination. Now, I would say further that there's something deeper going on. Clothing has a meaning that is not individually determined. So there was a philosopher by the name of Ludwig Wittgenstein. I believe I said that correct, although if I have any German members in the audience, please inform me how to properly say that. But he had this idea about language, that language is an expression of a community. And words in themselves only have meaning insofar as a community agrees that they have meaning. So if we take just a simple word, for example, like dog, we all know what dog means because we as a community have agreed that the word dog signifies this particular kind of animal that looks like this and has these particular qualities. Now, an individual in themselves cannot determine meaning. He calls this, Wittgenstein does, he calls this private language. We cannot in ourselves determine what a word means because the only way that words have a function is when they are communicated and understood by others. And if there's not a shared understanding about what a word means, then it does not have meaning. There's something very similar going on here with the clothing, right? You cannot individually will clothing to have a meaning that's independent from what a community decides its meaning is. So if you wear a suit that appears very clownish, and most people think those colors would be associated with somebody who is a clown, right? Then that suit is going to carry that meaning. Further, if we look at the details of the outfit, the Elon Musk tie, the shoes with the Twitter logo, likewise, he's trying to imbue his clothing with meaning, but by doing so, once again, he's flouting the meaning of the community as far as those clothes are concerned. This is also demonstrated in his mixing of the genres because he's wearing a three-piece suit, He has a vest on, he has a tie, trousers, and then he pairs that with sneakers. Now, I think that you can probably get away with wearing a suit with sneakers. I'm not one of these people who are like traditional about clothing and think that you can't do that. You can't mix and match. But you're going a bit far when you wear a three-piece suit with a tie and then pair that with sneakers, right? Here again, I don't think that he's conscious of the rules that he's really breaking here. Further, I would say that his outfit just comes off as childish. When you look at that outfit, you think that's something that, you would see a teenager wearing. And here again, I think this speaks to this idea of clothing having a meaning only insofar as a community decides what meaning it has. I think Jordan Peterson would be better suited choosing clothing that's of a darker color, just because that communicates a certain degree of sobriety and seriousness. And I think that this outfit, this Twitter suit, just really, really detracts from the meaning of what he's trying to say. Yeah. Now, Jordan Peterson's Heaven and Hell and Twitter suit bring up a very interesting conversation about the limits of authenticity in dress. I have defined authenticity previously as being when a man dresses in a way that's unique, interesting, cool, or if they're of a certain temperament, even beautiful. And I think the reason why you can only express yourself to a certain degree authentically in clothing is because clothing, like language with words, has meaning that is not individually determined. You cannot, like I said before, will yourself to come up with a word out of random and claim that it has meaning if a community does not agree that it has meaning, because you can't communicate it. Something is very similar going on here with clothing. I think that you can only, to a certain degree, express yourself authentically before you almost lose meaning in your clothing, precisely because clothing has meaning, once again, that is determined by a community. You can't individually will a sport coat to have a meaning that it does not have. It carries all of the connotations and historical significance, or its genealogy, so to speak, with it in your wearing it. Most people don't even probably know what a sport coat is technically called. They probably just call it a jacket. And they further don't have any understanding of the history of the garment, how it evolved over time. However, they do know the associations of a sport coat. If you see somebody wearing a sport coat, they would likely think, oh, well, they're wearing something fancy. They're a businessman, or they're in a professional field, right? Clothes carry these meanings independent of what an individual thinks they do. And to a certain degree, your clothing is going to have meaning that you can't will it to have. Now, I think, of course, there's room for play, and when I say authenticity, I think that's what I have in mind. You're playing to a certain degree, but at a certain point, if you wear your clothes in such a way, it's going to lose the meaning that you want it to have, such as I think that Jordan Peterson's Twitter and Heaven and Hell suit have here. Anyway, I'm still kind of working through these ideas about authenticity and the limits of authenticity, but that's what I have for you guys today. I hope that you enjoyed this conversation. I hope you enjoyed this kind of new approach to my channel. I'm trying to, as much as possible, incorporate different locations and different outfits. I'm trying to make my channel a little bit more artistic and a little less straightforward. But with that said, if you guys enjoyed this content, hit that like button, smash subscribe, hit the notification bell so you can be informed when I drop more videos on the Hulsey style. Until next time, guys. Out. Done. We out.